Have you ever pulled up to a set of traffic lights and ended up next to a brand new SUV that looks like it belongs in a music video? You know the type. Glossy paint, massive wheels, screens everywhere, interior lighting that looks like a nightclub, and a price tag that would make your landlord faint. And here's the part that messes with your head. The person driving it probably isn't rich. They're not a secret millionaire. They're not quietly sitting on a trust fund. They're not some crypto whale. They're a normal person with a normal job. So how is this happening? How are people affording cars that cost the same as a deposit on a house, while still saying they're skint at the end of the month? My name is Charlie, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, incentives, and why so many people end up trapped in financial decisions they didn't even realize they were making. And today, I'm going to explain the car payment trap nobody talks about. Not because it's interesting, because it's dangerous. Because once you fall into it, it doesn't just cost you money. It can quietly delay your future by 5, 7, even 10 years. Let me show you how it works. First, we need to talk about what has changed. Because the problem isn't that cars exist. The problem is that the entire way people buy cars has been engineered around one thing: the monthly payment. Not the total price, not the long-term cost, not what you're sacrificing to afford it, just the monthly number. And once you start shopping by monthly payment instead of total cost, you're not buying a car anymore. You're buying a lifestyle subscription with interest. And that is where everything goes wrong. Now, before we get into the mechanics of the trap, let's put some reality on the table. Because if I told you what many people are paying for a car every month, you might assume I'm exaggerating. But I'm not. Car payments that used to sound ridiculous have become normal. Not for luxury cars, not for supercars, for regular everyday vehicles. And what's even worse is that the biggest payments aren't coming from Ferraris. They're coming from the most normal things on the road: SUVs, crossovers, pickups, family cars. The stuff people buy because it's practical. And you'll see payments so high that 10 years ago, you would have assumed it was the monthly cost of renting an apartment. So the question is obvious. If wages haven't magically doubled, how are people doing it? The answer is they're not really affording it. They're stretching it. They're restructuring their lives around it. And the system is designed to make that feel normal. Here's the first part of the trap: loan terms. Remember when a car loan was 3 years? Maybe 4 if you were pushing it? Those days are gone. Now, long car finance isn't the exception. It's the default. 5 years is normal. 6 years is common. 7 years is everywhere. And you can absolutely find 8-year deals. I've even seen car finance run so long that you'll still be paying for the car while the sat-nav is outdated, the warranty is gone, and half the interior is held together by hope. And the reason lenders and dealers love long terms is simple. The longer the term, the lower the monthly payment looks. That's it. If a car costs $65,000, the payment might look horrifying over 3 or 4 years. But stretch it out to 7 or 8 years, and suddenly the monthly number looks manageable. And that's the psychological switch. Because once the buyer sees a number that feels manageable, the decision stops being logical. It becomes emotional. Yeah, I can do that. But here's what almost nobody calculates while they're sat in the dealership. Stretching the term doesn't make the car cheaper. It makes the car more expensive. Because you don't just pay for the car. You pay for time, you pay for interest, and you pay for depreciation, while still owing the original amount. So you end up in the second part of the trap. Negative equity. This is the moment the car owns you. Because cars lose value fast, especially early on. And if you're on a long loan, there's a very real chance that for years you will owe more than the car is worth. Meaning, if you try to sell it, you can't. If you try to trade it in, you can't. Unless you bring cash to cover the difference. And most people don't have that cash. So what do? They do the thing that creates the trap. They roll the negative equity into the next car. And now you're paying for 2 cars, but you only own 1. Which brings us to the second mechanism, the one that sounds like a bargain. Low APR and 0% deals. You've seen the ads: 0% finance, low monthly payments, limited time offer. It sounds like free money, but it's not. It's a pricing strategy, because you don't get a discount and 0% finance. You get one or the other. If you take the special rate, you often pay a higher price. If you negotiate the price down, you often lose the special rate. And for a lot of people, the bigger issue is this. Most of the best rates are for the best borrowers. The people with great credit, strong income, low existing debts. In other words, the people who least need the deal. Everyone else pays higher interest, over longer terms, on more expensive cars, which means the true cost balloons. But again, the buyer doesn't feel the ballooning, because they're only shown the monthly number. Now let's talk about the part nobody likes admitting out loud. The trap isn't just math, it's psychology, because car payments have been normalized in a way that would be laughed at in any other category. If someone told you they were spending $900 a month on clothes, you'd assume they had a problem. If someone said they were spending $900 a month on fast food, you'd stage an intervention. But if they say it's a car payment, people nod. Well, you need a reliable car. And that sentence is how the trap stays alive. Because the industry doesn't sell transport, it sells identity. It sells the feeling of being successful. It sells the idea that you deserve it, that you've earned it, that your car is proof you're doing well. And if you don't have something impressive, what does that say about you? This is why the marketing always shows freedom, always shows adventure, always shows status. You're not being sold a vehicle, you're being sold a version of yourself. And once the purchase becomes emotional, the payment becomes justifiable, even when it's destructive. So how do people actually afford these payments? This is where it gets bleak, because a lot of people aren't affording them. They're sacrificing everything else. They build their entire budget around a car payment the way people used to build budgets around housing. They rent smaller places, they avoid holidays, they stop saving, they cut food quality, they stop investing, they delay having kids, they delay moving out, they delay starting a business. Also, they can keep the car. I've seen people driving a brand new car and living like a student. Not because they have to, because they financed a lifestyle that required it. Some people take second jobs just to cover the payment, which is one of the strangest things we've normalized, working extra hours, to pay for the privilege of driving something that loses value every day. Your car becomes both your reward and your punishment. And for others, it gets worse. They start using credit cards to cover the extras: fuel, servicing, tires, insurance. So the car payment becomes the center of the budget, and everything else gets shoved onto high-interest debt to make the numbers work. It's like trying to keep a sinking boat afloat by drilling more holes. And then comes the version of this that should genuinely scare people: using long-term assets to fund short-term liabilities. People borrow against their home. They use personal loans, they use consolidation loans, they refinance other debt, all to either create a down payment or to escape negative equity, or to qualify for a better monthly payment. They're leveraging an appreciating asset, their home, to pay for a depreciating asset, a car. That is the financial equivalent of using your pension to buy designer trainers. It might feel good today, but it robs you tomorrow. Now here's the part that gets truly out of control. Many households aren't doing this once. They're doing it twice, or 3 times. 2 car payments, sometimes 3. One for mom, one for dad, another for the family car, or a work vehicle, or a financed weekend car. And suddenly, a household has built its own personal car finance company. Except unlike a finance company, they don't make money. They bleed it, every month. And the craziest part is how people measure success in this system. They don't measure success by wealth or savings or freedom. They measure success by whether they can keep the plates spinning. As long as the payments go out on time, they tell themselves they're doing fine. Even if they have no emergency fund, even if they're not investing, even if they're one repair bill away from disaster. And speaking of repair bills, here's another part of the trap that people underestimate massively: the invisible costs. Insurance is not the same when your car is expensive. Servicing is not the same. Tires are not the same. Brakes are not the same. Modern cars are complex. When something breaks, it's not a $100 fix anymore. It's sensors, modules, labor, diagnostics, specialist parts. And if you're already stretched on the payment, one big repair pushes you into debt. Then you're paying interest on the repair. while still paying interest on the car. And that's how manageable turns into I can't breathe. So let's do the real maths in a simple scenario. Imagine someone buys a car for roughly the price many people now consider normal. They finance it for years. They keep the monthly payment reasonable. Over that period, they pay the finance payment, insurance, fuel, servicing, repairs. And at the end, they own an older car worth a fraction of what they paid. So they've spent a huge amount of money to end up with a small asset. That's not transport. That's wealth destruction with Bluetooth. And the opportunity cost is the part that quietly ruins lives. Because if that same monthly payment was invested, even in something boring, something simple, over years it becomes real money. Not car nice money. Real money. Deposit money. Business money. Freedom money. But most people never feel opportunity cost. You don't get a monthly bill that says, "Congratulations, you just delayed your future by another month." So the trap stays invisible. And that's why it's so hard to escape. Because once you've committed to the payment, you start defending it. Not because it's logical, because it's emotional. You tell yourself you deserve it. You tell yourself it's reliable. You tell yourself it's safer. You tell yourself it's an investment. And if someone suggests driving something cheaper, it doesn't feel like advice. It feels like judgment, like an attack on your status, your success, your identity, which is exactly what the marketing trained you to feel. So the system keeps working. So what's the solution? The solution isn't never buy a nice car. The solution is simple, but it requires one uncomfortable shift. Stop shopping for the payment. Start shopping for the total cost. If you want a rule that instantly saves people from this trap, it's this. If the only way you can afford the car is by stretching the loan term until it feels painless, you can't afford the car. Because you're not buying a vehicle. You're signing up for a long-term financial obligation that will reduce your options for years. And that's the car payment trap nobody talks about. It doesn't look like a mistake on day one. It looks like a lifestyle upgrade. Until the monthly payments pile up, the repairs hit, the insurance rises, and you realize your car is the reason you can't get ahead. So the next time you see someone driving something that looks wildly expensive, don't assume they're winning. They might be, but there's a good chance they're just paying for it in ways you can't see. And if you're currently driving something reliable and paid off, that might not look impressive. But financially, that's a cheat code. Because freedom isn't the car. Freedom is what you can do when you don't owe anyone $900 a month just to get to work.